And we're back, and it's been a while. October 13th, 12:43, Mount Baker in the background. I wanted to explain to some of my friends the perks and pros and cons of snowboarding at Stevens Pass and Mount Baker, and then my really extreme biased opinion on what you should do if you're getting into it this season, and if you snowboard in the PNW in the Washington area anyways, between Mount Baker and Stevens Pass, because a lot of my friends have the Epic Pass, and then there's also Whistler up in Canada, and there's some other local mountains Crystal, I think, is down by Seattle, and there's a handful of other places too. But I wanted to explain my thought process and how you should approach one mountain and then kind of graduate to the other mountain until you're comfortable completely. So that's what I want to talk about. And some pretty sweet news. Mount Baker did just get its first dusting of snow, I think last night or mostly yesterday. And I think they posted a picture, and one of my buddies sent it to me. So I'll throw that in there because that was pretty sweet to see. It is, we are pretty far out historically. Mount Baker, I think, opened last year on the 20th, and the year before that it was again around the 20th. So I'm assuming this year it'll probably open up around the 20th again, and I'm definitely going to be there for opening day. So I have somebody else's video here pulled up, Goggin Money, but I need the screen to go away. There we go. So what I want to point out about Stevens Pass is they have this single chairlift here in a basically just one green run. And a problem that I see with that is that when you're learning, or everybody else is learning, anybody that's 4 years old up to 30 years old, people that have never seen snow before and they want to snowboard for the first time, people are coming down from Canada, people are traveling across Washington to go to Stevens Pass, and now you have everybody that wants to learn, or maybe people that are helping their friends, but basically it's super congested, and it's really difficult to get in a straight line and kind of start to figure out how to turn and how to stop on your heel and your toe edge. And the only place that you really want to try and learn those things is here on the kind of green runs. However, this is where my personal opinion, again, it's very biased, I think you should learn how to snowboard at Mount Baker, because if you go to the Heather Meadows, the upper lodge, you have the C2 lift here, and it gives you a handful of green runs, right? You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, if 5-ish and 6 runs just on this single chairlift alone. And it doesn't get really congested because you can kind of go on different runs. You can see it from the top of the chairlift. Be well, there's a handful of people on this one. Maybe I'll take this run to the right, or this run to the left. And then from there, there's certain runs that are good for kind of going straight and getting some speed, and then getting a turn or two in there. And then there's other runs that are good for kind of just a long swooping turn, and some of them you need more speed to get over a little hump, and then you're well, now I need to go faster to get over the hump, because every time I stop or get stuck I get kind of annoyed. So then you get kind of that push to be well, I need to go faster to get over this hump and then get down to the chairlift again, and then you kind of just rinse and repeat that cycle. And it's a lot easier to do that here because you have so many different runs. And even then you have the C3 lift right next to it. It gives you a blue and a green, and if you took this one up, it's just a longer one. And so my personal opinion is that you should, if you can, go to Mount Baker and snowboard at the upper lodge for the first maybe 2 times you go snowboarding. The first day you go snowboarding is probably going to be the worst experience you have ever had in your life. However, a good day or a bad day snowboarding beats a good day at work. And with that kind of idea of getting your snowboarding basics done at Mount Baker to then get comfortable, because there is more runs out after you go here and you get comfortable, you can take the C3 lift over, you come down to chair 5 here, and you go to the top of chair 5, and then look, you have all these blue runs. And then my the advice would be, once you're comfortable here on these green runs, start going to these blue runs, because these blue runs, they're a lot longer. You're going to have more fun. And then once you're kind of comfortable with the blue runs at Mount Baker and you're comfortable like there, you can pretty much do anything on the front side of Stevens Pass. And some of my friends are like, none of that nonsense. We're just going to go as fast as we possibly can and send it down the mountain until I learn. It works for some people, doesn't work for other people. And then we also have the backside of Stevens Pass. And these are longer runs. You see them, a lot of them are black, some of them are double black. But once you're confident on like your board and your skill level, you can kind of judge. You're like, okay, I think I probably can go down this. And you can see through a lot of these runs because they're all groomed. And then once you're comfortable on blues, either mountain, then you're pretty much like at like a lower intermediate level. And that's when you can really start to explore like a lot of what Mount Baker has. Like this chair 6, this is a bunch of like, Gunner's Bowl and all these like creeks and North Face, like all this other stuff becomes a lot more fun. And then if you wanted to go up to Whistler, I don't know what the Whistler map is like because I haven't been up there before, but the intermediate level of snowboarding is where most people generally stop progressing, not because they don't want to be better, but because there's only so many days in a season and you have to work and you have to do all your other lively responsibilities. But that's what I think. So you should do at least 2 days, I think, at the upper part or the upper lodge at Mount Baker. And then from there, once your basics are kind of like, I can understand how I need to turn and what I'm trying to do. And then once you're like good there and you can try starting to blossom onto the blue runs, once you get to those blue runs, you can really just kind of experiment at either mountain. I like Mount Baker. I would say probably a lot more than Stevens Pass just because it's still like that homey kind of vibe that you get from snowboarding. Like when I was growing up, I just snowboarded at Mount Shasta. And it was like the slower lifts, everything was like super, like everybody wants to be here, but I feel like Stevens Pass kind of has like a hustle and bustle. They have like classes and like a bunch of kids and they're always like running people through the lifts, and they have like the super quick lifts, like slow down at the bottom and the top, and then they speed off. But Mount Baker doesn't have those lifts. They're still like privately owned, and it's really enjoyable. When I like go up there, I enjoy just kind of like the slow pace. There's no like hustle and bustle of the mountain. The mountain just feels more homely, if that makes sense. So, and if you have the Epic Pass or you don't have the Epic Pass and you can get it for like a discounted price, highly recommend it because I do enjoy going to Stevens Pass. The park is better there, and if you're going to Stevens Pass or you're trying to find park at Baker, you're not really ever going to Mount Baker to hit the park. You're going to Mount Baker to kind of explore, go through the backcountry, hike across the ridge if you have like your AVI classes and you're like your probe, your beacon, your shovel, and then you can like go out of bounds and then ski or snowboard back into bounds. So that's generally why a lot of people go to Mount Baker. Stevens Pass doesn't really have that type of option, at least in depth or like as large of a variety for like backcountry. And then I think the Epic Pass, or without the Epic Pass, if you go to Stevens Pass, I think it's like 140 to 160 a day. And then if you were to go to Mount Baker, it's about 90 per day. And so a lot of my friends do have like the Epic Pass, but I'd still suggest like it's only $90, and if you have like your gear and a lot of stuff that you already need, then I think it's beneficial to go there first, because Stevens Pass is very congested on the green run. And overall, like if you're not going on a random Tuesday or Wednesday, like if you're hitting the Stevens Pass on the weekend, it's definitely going to be a lot more busy than if you were to hit Mount Baker on like a random Tuesday or Wednesday, or even like on the weekends. It's really not that busy. The lift lines don't take that long at Mount Baker, and Stevens Pass's lifts can be like a 5-10 minute wait sometimes. And as the following weeks follow and whatnot, I'll probably have like another video of me waxing all the boards like the couple of days before the opening day, and any other like random stuff that I think about. I also built a, what's it called? Like a fake rail in my garage, or you could use it in the garage, you could use it outside. And I'll show you guys that because it's pretty cool and it works pretty well. So this is the rail here that I built. It's PVC pipe. Pretty sure it's 10 feet, might be 10 or 8 feet, and it's put on top of a 2x6. And this is what it looks like. I noticed, or I kind of learned, that with this height, it doesn't help or really show like the balance that you'll need to kind of hang on the rail. But if you take like a 2x4, you put it on both ends and like one in the middle, it lifts it up at least 4 or so inches, and that does help staying on and kind of like understanding the balance. And I also have a 10x10 carpet that I picked up at Harbor Freight, so that way it doesn't scuff up the board and it's kind of easier to move it around in the garage. But it was pretty simple to make. I got some, I think they were 1 5/8 screws, and I basically just drilled out the top and then sunk it through. I think I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think I put 6-ish, maybe 7 of them across the whole thing, and it's pretty sturdy. I had a garage session on it 2 days ago with one of my buddies. We'll probably have like one more this month to kind of just hang out in the garage, talk, BS, practice, because it's easy to practice here because it's built in my garage and it cost maybe 20, 25 bucks to put it all together. I had some screws laying around the house anyways, so it really didn't cost all that much. Picked it up at Home Depot. I basically built it in the Home Depot, just put it all together on the floor, and I was like, yep, this looks like it'll work. Brought it home and screwed it together. And one thing that I would maybe keep in mind, you could always look up on Mount Baker's like website. I think they have weekends, the Heather Meadows Upper Lodge is open, and then I think during the week it's mostly closed, but sometimes they might be open. So the weekends it's generally open from what I remember, but looking it up before you, like the day before you go, to decide if you're like, hey, I want to go to Mount Baker or go to Stevens Pass, then looking it up helps. But it's not the only lodge. There is a middle lodge, which you pretty much have to snowboard to, which is kind of cool. And then there's the lower lodge. This is where I started. I didn't even know there was like an upper lodge the first couple times I went up there, because I had been up there with other people that have, 1, never snowboarded before, 2, had never been to Baker. So once I found out there was an upper lodge, and I was like, hey, I should take my friends to the upper lodge to show them the greens. And that made it a lot easier on them to kind of like figure out what they were trying to do instead of trying to go down these blues and they've like never seen snow in their life. And then like once you've done your basics and you kind of understand what you're trying to do, you don't necessarily even need to go to Heather Meadows. You can basically just pull up to the lower lodge, the White Salmon Lodge, and you can just hop on basically C7 and then drop down to the Autobahn or just go wherever you want. But that's like the great part. Like once you've got it and you kind of understand it, it's easy to just go ahead and rip from there. And in my opinion, learning how to snowboard is harder, but once you've like understood the basics and you've got it, then progressing forward is much easier. And skiing, I've never skied. I've skied like once when I was maybe like 10, but I don't really remember it. But skiing, starting out how to ski, generally from what I've seen and what my other friends have told me, is a lot easier than learning how to snowboard. And once you've got the basics, you can pretty much do like the basic stuff. But being like a really good skier is a lot harder than I think being a really good snowboarder, because once you've got snowboarding, it really doesn't, like nothing else really changes It's just like, how far do you want to push yourself and how comfortable are you? Which may be the same thing for skiing. And I don't know any great skiers, but I know a lot more great snowboarders just because that's who I hang out with more. But yeah, so that's kind of what I think about Stevens Pass and Mount Baker. So starting out at Mount Baker for your first like 2-3 times maybe, and then seeing how Stevens Pass is, and then once you're like, okay, I understand what I want to do, what I'm trying to do, start exploring your blues. And once you're like comfortable in the blues, the blacks really aren't that scary. They're just longer. Sometimes they're a little bit steeper. And then like generally the double blacks, those involve like cliff drops and trees and more terrain that isn't as manageable as like the blues and the greens, which are just groomed essentially. And then from there, like, just let it rip. Snowboarding's great. It's one of the greatest things to do or one of the greatest things you can do in like the winter months, especially in the PNW. Like, I always tell people, always want to help people. Getting out of the house is great because people are like, oh, I get sad when the sun goes away for months at a time. Like, the sun's still here. It's just, 30 degrees outside, so you don't want to go outside. But if you go out in the mountains, snowboarding, skiing, or like you're getting in a workout, getting in some good cardio, your legs are going to get stronger, your core is going to get stronger, you're out in the sun, you're out in the snow, you're outdoors, and it's just great. It's a great time for everybody. But I don't think I have really any other points to make. And then I'm going to send this out to a handful of my friends that were like, hey, I want to go snowboarding. Can you help me? Or like, where should we go? Or what should we do? This video is for you guys. So I'm sure sometime later today, you'll probably get a text. It's like, hey, watch this. I made this for you. And hopefully I get to take a bunch more people up snowboarding this year, because I got 3 or 4 people hooked on snowboarding last year. I introduced like probably at least 10 people to snowboarding last year as well. And then some of the coworkers that missed out on it last year were like, well, that seemed like it was pretty fun. And all you did for the last 8 months when the season's been closed is talk about how bad you want to go snowboarding. So I'll see you guys in the future, and I'll see you guys on the hill. I'll see y'all later.